The Marshal outfit is responsible for security and safety of Parliament, which includes the precinct, Right Honourable Speaker, leadership, members of Parliament, even those who visit Parliament, and other stakeholders. On the day of the vetting of some of the nominees, 30th January for that matter, we were overwhelmed with a lot of visitors on the compound, on the corridors, even on the floors. And so around 9:45 p.m., I was right outside this corridor, managing the visitors that were supporting the nominee that had just been vetted, and those who are also coming to support the next nominee. That was when I heard shouts and altercations in the committee room. So I quickly rushed in to find out what was going on. When I came in, at this side, I realized there were two honorable members who were almost at each other's throat. So I quickly moved from that side, passed my way through the crowd, and then came in to separate them and try to push one honorable member to go to where his seat is. By the time we got there, we realized there was a table, a chair on the table, and other members were on their feet, others pushing the table, others pulling the table. So I went behind the chairman to offer protection for him at that time. Then the minority leader and the majority leader started having a conversation. So they went out. They went out for further consultation. And by the time they were to come back, I realized that the table at that corner had been lifted. We tried to help it down, but before we realized it had been turned to the side and the legs were forcibly removed. It was at that point that I realized that we had to take that table out so that we can keep sanity in this committee room. So the table were lifted out, and then the majority leader came in, tried to cool down tempers, and then eventually he could not talk on the mic, on the console, because some of them were damaged. We quickly had to advise him that the consoles are not working. And so he now mentioned that sitting cannot go on because the consoles are not working. Whatever we are going to be said here has to be captured by the media. And if the consoles are not working, it will be difficult for the media to get to know. So we had to adjourn for the next day, and that was the only time that we were able to escort members out of this chamber. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Since you are the Marshal of this precinct and this institution, my colleagues have a lot of questions for you, so I will allow them to ask the question, and then I will come in. Honorable Isabel.
Thank you very much. Can you take us through your typical responsibility within these premises? Let's say during a vetting process, for example. What is your typical responsibility in these premises? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As I said earlier on, we are primarily responsible for security and safety of the precinct of Parliament, as well as the Right Honourable Speaker, members of Parliament, the staff, other stakeholders who visit Parliament. So our activities cut across checking people at the compound, checking people in the vetting room, controlling the crowd, and controlling all those who are participating in the vetting process.
Thank you. So if you see two honorable members literally at each other's throat, would you come in with force to separate, or you'd... because by being here for a while, I realize that you're a bit diplomatic in some of your actions. Would you usually tear them apart?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that's the first thing we do. We try to come in between them to separate them. They are honorable members, and we can't throw ourselves at them trying to put them on the ground. But diplomatically, we try to separate them, tell them that you are on TV or the whole world is looking at you. Honorable, don't do that. Don't do that. So we try to separate them. If they go beyond by hurting each other, then we can come in to take them apart and take them out of the precincts.
In view of what happened during, okay, so since I came to Parliament, there have been a few instances where we have gotten a bit aggressive. Don't you think that it's time that maybe the Marshal's Department even does some reorientation for honorable members? Do you advise something like that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a point in the right direction. We started with the members who were just elected into Parliament. We did their orientation. We were there to have a chat with them, and then we gave them all the security orientation and protocols that they need to do whilst in Parliament.
Some of the new members were actively in the...
Just from the orientation.
Yes, just from the orientation.
And they were involved in that happen.
Very actively involved. Do you think that maybe there was something left that maybe has to be, recapped or otherwise? But in the generality of it, what do you think we should do from your perspective towards this? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think that day, in perspective, whatever issue was at stake was what they were looking at. They even didn't look anything about security. And that is what may have happened, that some new members were even going overboard. But what I think going forward we should do is that we can all take our security as a personal responsibility. How we talk to each other, how we relate to each other is something that we should look at so that there can be decorum between us as members of Parliament, even staff, and all stakeholders who come here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Marshal, when the scuffle started, you were first there. And then from the video, we saw that police people subsequently came into the vetting room. And they also came to either assist you or to support you maintain law and order. My question is, at what point do we invite the police into either the chamber or the vetting room? At what point, in order to avert what we saw? Because if indeed, I just want to know, if indeed we were not, let me put it this way, we were just very fortunate. Otherwise, probably by the time that the police people would have come in, worse things could have happened from what we saw. So at what point do you invite them in to come and support you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think what we do first is that we, the marshals, now enter to assess the situation and see whether it's something that we can handle by ourselves. Some of our colleagues were in civilian clothing, so maybe members did not recognize, but we were all in. And when we realized that it was now becoming an uproar, both sides were up. That is when we informed the police commander, and then the police came in so that we could avert the situation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. That will be all for now.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. On the specific day when this occurred, you mentioned that you were trying to manage the crowd in the corridor. Was this the first time the building had been overwhelmed with crowds when it's time for vetting?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have had such experiences before, but it wasn't up to this level at this time. We realized that there were too many visitors who had come to support the nominees. So this time around, it was a bit more than what we could actually handle.
Were you at any point, did you raise your concerns with either the chair of the committee, with the clerk, or with whoever is the relevant reporting authority? Did you at any point raise your concerns with regards to the number of people attending the vetting?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We raised those concerns with the chairman and even the clerk. And that's what made us to reduce the numbers of seats behind us. We usually had the full set, but we reduced it to 10. But some of the visitors that come, for instance, a paramount chief will come, the entourage alone is more than 12. And so it was difficult for us to manage the crowd. A lot of people were standing because the seats we provided were 10. But then they come in and the other entourage will all come and stand behind them.
Do you have any standard operating procedures for what to do in the event that any chaotic situation happens in Parliament?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do.
In the event that something like this happens, must you be called in to activate it, or do you have the authority to go ahead and activate whatever these operating procedures?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We operate on the orders of the Right Honorable Speaker. And so when we are called in, we are alerted, then we activate the standard operating procedures.
On the specific day when this event occurred in this room, were you called in?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we were called in, and that is when I came in to assess the situation. We realized that it was beyond the two of us. And then we asked the police to come in to help us maintain security and safety within the committee room.
At the time this incident was happening, was the corridor being evacuated and were people being asked to leave the room, or were you simply trying to maintain some kind of order?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think at that point we were all in this room. The corridor was rather being packed. Other people who were watching it on TVs and other places were all now coming in to come and see what was going on. So the room was being filled as the time goes on. But we had our men outside who had blocked the gates so that other people will not come in. But the corridors were getting full from people who were already outside.
Based on the invitations, we were informed in one of the hearings that the maximum number of people that any nominee was to bring, I believe, was 10. Did you have any system in place to monitor who was allowed to be in here and who was not?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee chairman had informed us that it's only 10 people that are allowed, and they have been given invitation cards. And so we have a system in place outside. We inspect the invitation card before you are allowed to enter. So that was the system that we were using.
Is that to say that everyone who was in the room had an invitation card on the day?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly not. Other people were brought in by other members of Parliament.
In retrospect, or perhaps looking forward, what suggestions would you make regarding how the rooms are populated, how the building is made accessible moving forward as a lesson from what we witnessed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe moving forward, it behooves on us, the nominees, to communicate same to our people, that we have been given a restricted number of invites. If it is 10, we agree with the 10, and we'll make provisions for the 10. If anybody there's spillover, they can be asked to be in their offices or in other places that has been designated for that, and leave the committee room for the 10 that have been invited. That place we can be able to ensure cooperation and security within the committee room.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
There is a follow-up question here, so allow.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question. Much as you mentioned the number 10, at the last time when I came, I counted the seats just to have an idea of the number of people in the room out of curiosity. And there were about 60. There are 2 on this side, 2 rows on this side, 3 or 4 in the middle, and also 2. And multiplying by the number, I saw at least 60 because I was curious to see how many people could we accommodate at a time. And at first, during the appointments committee sittings, we would not allow people to be standing in the alleys. Now we seem to have allowed people to be standing. Another vetting I saw, some were even sitting in front of the first row. Don't you think that we have relaxed the rules a bit? And that is why, suddenly there seems to be a bit of laxity in the system that we had. Because I've been on the appointments committee for 3 years. We didn't used to have that, let me say, congestion. Let me put it that way. We didn't have that. Don't you think that we have relaxed the rules a bit?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The 60 that you were talking about was the earlier sittings when we had allowed the whole place to be opened up. Now the chairman insisted that now we stick with the 10, and that is when we arrange only 10 seats at the back. But whilst sitting is going on, we will see a member will enter with somebody. It's difficult to get a person out, and the person comes to add up to the number, and the number keeps going high. Those who were sitting down, I think it was the tradition of the paramount chief that was here, that when he sits, there should be some people sitting in front of him. And that was what happened the last time.
Yeah, this is a follow-up. Mr. Marshal, you appear to be concerned only about people in this room which could pose security threat. You have not indicated to us your fears about outside the compound. So are you suggesting that people who come in, even if there were 1 million people, you don't bother about it? Because we have droves of people coming in, some drumming, some singing, and the whole parliament is turned into, an arena of a festival. Are you concerned about that, or you are not?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's of serious concern to us. It's something that we have never seen before. But this time around, we realized that it was happening. People were bussed, some all the way from Tamale and other places were bussed in. And because of their culture, they carry with them drums and the rest. We insisted that they should not play because this is an office. People are working. You can't be playing drums and the rest. You try to stop them. By the time you turn around to do other things, another group has come doing almost the same thing. So it was back and forth that we kept stopping them. But then we had a system at the gate to stop all buses that were coming in. People will now debus and now walk in. They are coming to visit an MP. They will not say they are coming for vetting. They will go to the visitor center, take a visitor's ID. They are coming to visit an honorable member. You can't stop him because this is House of Parliament, open to the public. The person now goes to the honorable member. Before you see, the person has found himself inside the vetting room, and that kept the number going up. But we are concerned with security on the floors of Job 600 and other places, the compound, and we tried as much as possible to keep the security in place. At that day, we have as close as 100 police officers that were dotted around, some within the car parks and then within the precincts, observing and checking so that members are not hurt, the properties in Parliament are not destroyed as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Let me ask some of the earlier witnesses indicated that they were here to protect properties of the state. Let me ask you, would you agree with me that the security that was provided wasn't adequate? So that prompted these members of parliament to join. I know security is supposed to be provided by the Marshal, but they decided to join because they felt security we provided wasn't enough. Would you agree with me?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think we provided the necessary security for the committee meeting. Little did we know that it will go to the extent of damaging state property. You realize when the table was pulled, because the cables are interconnected, that was when the console now fell from the table to hit the ground and get scattered into pieces. But as much as possible, we were also holding them in place so that they are not destroyed. It was unfortunate that particular console fell when the table was lifted and got broken.
So in reality, you didn't need the members of parliament who were protecting property, public property. You don't need them at all to support the police. Is that what you are saying?
Mr. Chairman, we need everybody to help us keep security.
Yeah, before they even started destroying properties, there was this popular instruction from the leadership. We all heard it. Two table and two cables. What did you do? Immediately you heard that. What did the Marshal do?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Protection of the properties is also in our care, and we came in as much as possible to stop them from removing those cables. Some of the mics were on. Honorable members have on them and were speaking through it, so there was no way we could shut everything down, and we just had to protect what is there. It was unfortunate that the movement of the table that caused that console to fall. However, the rest were protected at that time.
Chair, I just want to find out, because the instruction came before the distraction. You were here. And when the instruction came, he spoke into the mic, so everyone heard it. I'm asking the measures you took immediately, because if you had taken probably, for want of word, the right action, probably they couldn't have even acted the way they did, because we all heard it. I wasn't here, but I was just watching it on television, and you could hear that cable to table. And so at that time,
Honorable colleague, he mentioned that he wasn't here when the whole thing started. He was within the corridor. When he realized that there was altercation, he decided to come in. Was that it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So you didn't hear that there was this shout from one of the leaders that to cable no tree, to cables no tree table no.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was in when that particular statement was made. However, all our eyes were on the table and looking at those who maybe attempt to hold any of the console or table or cables to pull. Those that attempted, we tried to ward them off. But the unfortunate thing was the dragging of the table, the forceful dragging of the table caused that console to fall and split into pieces.
I just want to find out, was it helpful, those who tried to, let me say, support you to protect properties here, was it helpful, the members of parliament?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it was helpful. They kept bringing the tables back, otherwise more of the consoles may have gotten damaged at that point.
Okay. Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Kofi Ofosu, we will discharge you now. We may call on you again